When I started this channel, I had already amassed a large collection of old world architectural evidence, I suppose you could say. The world over, really, as you can see in this compilation I put together. But as the channel progressed, I have found myself unable to get off the North American continent. And that's not to say that I can't find any visual evidence of the old world off continent, but there's something about North America that won't let me leave, and in particular the States. And part of that has to do with the availability of the visual evidence. It seems to be more readily available. The old photographs of places in North America seem easier for me to find for some reason, especially in the States. And that could be attributed to the population of the States, the amount of people that have uploaded images, amount of organizations, that historical societies that have visual evidence for us to peruse online. But it's more than that. There's something about the States that is, to me, is crucial in uncovering the mysteries of the past. The historical narrative appears to be a very, very blatant lie to me. In the States, you're seeing visual evidence from across the United States here, and architecture that really is not a part of the past that we are taught. And in particularly for me, the American Midwest keeps drawing me in. There's something about the large cities and the small cities that basically punch very, very large holes in the historical narrative that we've been given. So in this video, I thought I would feature for you two smaller cities in the central area of the United States. And my research has brought me to cities I didn't even know existed. And so many of these cities having these spectacular courthouses and city halls and opera houses and things I never would have thought I would have seen. And that's why I bring this to you, sharing with you the visuals that I find, the time I spend digging for these and unearthing photographs that aren't always readily available on the surface. So I hope you enjoy this video. We're going to be looking at Paducah, Kentucky, and Terre Haute, Indiana. Thanks for being here. Let's put Paducah, Kentucky in the spotlight. And just for a bit of geography, we get Paducah here at the confluence of the Ohio and Tennessee rivers. And population demographics indicating Paducah a small city, never really getting any bigger than 30,000, 35,000 people population-wise. And before the turn of the century, less than 20,000 people. And we get this bird's eye view map from 1889, at the time when you could say about 10,000 people were in Paducah, and we already have indications of pretty elaborate architecture. And the same type of architecture we're used to seeing throughout the States. Paducah having a American Civil War narrative surrounding its history, the battle between the Confederates and the Union. Ulysses S. Grant apparently takes control of it early on in the Civil War. And here on the Wikipedia page, they actually give us Fort Anderson in Paducah, a depiction of what that supposedly looked like at the time, obviously looking like a star fort. And because of its geographic location with the rivers, Paducah having a strong history of steamboat transportation. And we get the narrative that a lot of Paducah was demolished during that Civil War era, and then rebuilt, of course, after in the economic boom post-American Civil War. And if you're familiar with the channel, you'll know that we speculate here that many of these structures were standing long before that time frame, and that the American Civil War is really some sort of placeholder for a conflict that did take place, a taking over of the realm and the implementation of the New World. Well, you'll see a few depictions of flooding. There was a big flood in 1937, and that's what you're seeing, what you'll be seeing as we go through here. More indications of flooding here. So you get the wonderful brick thoroughfares. You can see the rail tracks here. We are told that Paducah had an electric railway system at the turn of the century. So we're ticking all the boxes, old world boxes. Actually, they have a large section of the downtown area is a designated as a heritage site or location, which is National Register of Historic Places is what we call that. So it is recognized as having that old world charm, I guess you could say, this type of architecture. And I wanted to highlight a few smaller locations in this video, just to show the viewers that it's not just the big cities that had this type of architecture, but really it was everywhere. Much of it nicely preserved. I don't know much about the area. If you're familiar with Paducah, would like to add part of your story, please do in the comment section. We get more flooding. And it's my estimation that in this old world research, we are uncovering a grid system of towns and cities, particularly in the American Midwest, Central, East Coast, working its way into the western regions, but I think a lot of the West suffered great cataclysm and get into the Grand Canyons and the deserted areas, and I think there's a lot of damage that went on there. But we are seeing indications of a grid system with all of this architecture. A high school, Paducah High School. And of course, these are my views and speculation on the topic. Can't really say anything for sure, but what I can tell you is that from my research, something is wrong with the timeline. We're not being told the truth about how these places were built and came to be. There has to be more to the story than what we've been told. We get all sorts of churches. This is the Cumberland Presbyterian depiction. Could not find a photograph, but no question that it once stood. Some of the churches that do stand or have stood, here's one, First Baptist, looking like it could have easily been a government building of some sort. This one still stands, the Methodist Episcopal. Here you can see it in the modern day. Very tight stonework, something we're used to seeing in this research. St. Francis Church. Beautiful architecture, not something that we do in the modern day. Here we have an old city hall. This is a great case in point. This is how it used to look in the newer City Hall is this single-story hunk of junk, if you ask me. So in a nutshell, that encapsulates the old world and the new world. And it's a good indication of something we've lost. And that's why I'm doing the research here on this channel, is to bring you the visuals and enlarge the amount of people that have access to these visuals, so we can sort of put our heads together and speculate on what once was. The Columbia Theater, here's the inside of that theater. Looks like it's ready for the wrecking ball. The courthouse, McCracken County Courthouse. And these photos apparently are from the newly constructed phase. Apparently it's right at the beginning of its opening and right at the end of construction. And to me, this looks very weathered and worn, and looks like it's been around for quite some time. So I don't see that as a new construction photo. And you get this big hunk of junk out front, yet you have this amazing structure back here that again does not look brand new. Maybe some modifications are being made, but nothing new about that to my eye. And then we have a newer courthouse linked up with the post office. An elementary school. Again, so the multi-story aspect of construction is where I have trouble believing the narrative. You see what we do in the modern day. We try to minimize the number of stories for expediency. It's very frivolous. Even just to build 1, 2, 3 stories is frivolous and put a flat roof on it, but then you end up putting all these dormers on it and a tower. At some point you have to ask the question, why? Why would you build it in such a way? And of course the detractors will say it was just the style at the time. Here's another supposed newly completed construction photo. But again, it's looking like there's a dusting off going on, like it's been weeded over, and it's being uncovered. So I think the Civil War story provides cover for the reclaiming of the realm. It really is, even according to the historical narrative we're given, it really is a reset of the population and the economy and the technologies at the time in North America, in the United States in particular. But it does seep into Canada as well. Canadian Confederation, 1867, so that coincides with the end of the American Civil War as well. Still market, looks like it's still there. This is the post office, the old post office. You have, of course, the very rickety-looking wheels and the architecture that does not fit the modes of transportation for the time. You can see at this stage they've removed the bell tower. You get some very interesting Antiquitech on top here as well. But like I said, they've removed that aspect of it at this point in time, looking like early 1900s. But all of this looking well worn, not less than 50 years old at the time of the photograph. There's some age issues for sure. This is the hotel. We saw it earlier, the Irvin Cobb Hotel. Not a great depiction. A lot of postcards in this one. Some of these smaller locations, it is more difficult to search for the visuals. This is St. Mary Convent and Grade School. The Elks Home, of course, a multi-storied Elks Home with circular windows. And we'll end on the Hotel Oxford. So Paducah showing us a little bit of the old world, despite the fact that it is a smaller city in the States. Terre Haute, Indiana, a fascinating location. Here we see a picture of the courthouse. It still stands to this day. And geographically not far from Paducah down here at the bottom of your screen, Terre Haute not far from Indianapolis. We have covered St. Louis, Louisville, Evansville, even Springfield, I believe we've covered on this channel as well. And Terre Haute, a small city, modern day population just under 60,000, and we go back to the turn of the century and we're just under 40,000 people. And again, most of the structures that you're going to see in this video were said to have been built in this time period here. And whether or not you believe that is up to you. I think you know, if you know my channel, you know I don't believe that they were built during this time period with the means that we are told that they had at the time. And when we look at many of these old photographs, we see evidence of a civilization that appears to have been here longer than we are being told. You can see the age of the buildings and the age of the streets, and they're not really fitting of the population size. So the narrative in this research is that many of these locations were found dead, and repopulated. And there'll be evidence of that in this video as we get into some of the locations. But we do get some of these old train stations as well. Several of these in Terre Haute. Everything made of stone, not making sense for a time period where populations are flocking to these locations. We are being led to believe that because of the immigrant populations who supposedly would have been skilled in stone and brickwork, that these structures went up in a fashion that resemble places like Germany and the architecture you'll find there. And I think that is a cover story, historical cover story. And I think what we're looking at is evidence of a previous civilization, and then the population boom, a repopulating of these areas in the States. Here we see an old world church that looks like it's being demolished. And we have a big nasty old gasoline sign out front. And some of these difficult to find. You're going to see several postcards in this presentation, and usually that means that I looked for a photograph, but I couldn't find it. Which is often the case, especially with these smaller locations. There's a little bit less visual evidence to draw from. And you can see even in this postcard or page, I'm not sure what this is from, the type of architecture that shouldn't really be there according to the historical narrative we've been given. We have hospitals looking like this with all sorts of ornate brickwork and stone clad lower areas. The type of architecture that doesn't even get done in our modern day because of how laborious it would be and how expensive it would be to build, but we're being led to believe that this was not a problem back in the 1800s. And here we see that same train station I showed you earlier. We've got this interesting looking onion dome, Moorish style architecture in Terre Haute, Indiana. And of course the churches is looking like something out of old Europe. And that's why we say North America is a part of the old world. And then history tells us that this location, much like so many of the other locations in the States, began as a fort during, in this case, I believe it's the War of 1812, Fort Harrison. And I think that these are fictionalized depictions painting a narrative of history that is nowhere near close to what the actual history of this continent really is. And of course, these are all my opinions. I'm not claiming to know anything really about the past, but I am suggesting what we are told about the past and what we have been taught is a falsification, and that there's much more to the story than we have been told. You get a lot of these type of examples. This is the old depiction of, I believe it's St. Benedict's Church. This is what it looks like now. So they've removed the main dome. They'll tell us, of course, the structure was compromised on the main dome. It's always the same old story. And then they took out all of this decoration here. But take a look at how intricate this all really is. Maybe they're trying to downplay the majesty of the past. That's what I suggest with a lot of these alterations. St. Benedict's Church is what it is. Really making no sense that these small locations would have this type of amazing architecture. It doesn't matter how you try to, what type of box you try to fit it in, how you try to justify it, that the immigrants of that area were just so skilled that they decided to throw up churches. In this case, the John Ruskin School, we are told, always built with the tower. I don't know. We're given depictions of these types of structures, and we're told that they are churches. This could easily have been a government building of some sort, but it designated a church. So the early power structures in our society were the churches and the secret society organizations. And I think we're uncovering a very uncomfortable mystery about our past. And why is it that so many of us have trouble tracing our ancestry back more than 4 or 5 generations back before the mid-1800s? It seems that everybody stops at the same point. I know there are outliers that will say their family can be traced back 300-400 years. Is that even true? We have to question everything. The Rose Dispensary. We have curved brick-style buildings. Really do enjoy these Midwestern towns, the immense architecture that comes with them. We have the Elks having a presence here in Terre Haute. Tribune building, so we have the newspapers of the time. Now, if we recognize the news as fake in the modern day, if you look back in the rearview mirror, if you're still accepting the newspaper clippings of the past as historical fact, and I have news for you. They didn't just start with the fake news in the modern day. I think this has been going on for quite some time. And a narrative has been woven for the people. Clubhouses looking like something out of ancient Greece. Hospitals with the frivolity of a tower, observation tower. This may be where you get your fresh air when you're recovering. Knights of Columbus, another organization connected with the Catholic Church, inheriting beautiful stone structures, looking very what we would consider church-like. Now this is the State Normal Library. We have a strong normal school presence in Terre Haute, and we'll get to that. The normal schools, I did do a video on that, Horace Mann and the normal schools, the implementation of what is considered normal happening in the mid-1800s. All of this history really getting kicked off in the mid-1800s, really laying the groundwork for the world we perceive in our modern day. This is a church as well, Christ Scientist Church. Spectacular looking courthouse. Really, really amazing architecture, and not really making sense for a small city in Indiana. And I say not making sense, but it does make sense with all the evidence we've seen. There's much more to this story. They're looking very French chateau-like, this structure. And I believe that they painted the dome. That one's having this color here. Amazing looking structure though, that's for sure. And built by the likes of these gentlemen, I guess. Painters, these guys are. And what were they doing? Slapping a new coat of paint on the old world? So we have to envision those structures that you're seeing being put together by these types of gentlemen. What do you think? Are these guys laying the brick? Are these putting the arches in? I don't think so. This is the aftermath of a flood, 1913. Was it a flood? Or is there some wanton destruction going on? To question everything. This is the Hotel Deming, and I'd have a more recent photograph of this where they have taken off the that roof line, that really an ornate roof line. You have to ask yourself, why would they do that? And a depiction of the interior of that hotel. Really beautiful looking interior. Takes a lot of work to put something like this together. This is the Terre Haute house. Not even sure when this was built. They say it was rebuilt in the 20s. This photograph looking like it predates the 20s, or right in and around that time, I should say. So I'm not sure if this is the new one or this is the old one that goes back into the mid 1800s. But this is looking very old at the time of this photograph, and you can see the streets. You can see the brick pavers in the streets, a part of the old world infrastructure. We do have a few looks at the inside. They did tear this thing down, but I was able to find some interior shots of this structure. This is the lobby. That's one heck of a lobby for Terre Haute, Indiana. This is something we're used to seeing, and we have seen the octagonal rosettes adorn many old world structures. And of course, they had a wonderful looking library, the second library now in this presentation. There it is again in postcard form. And another gentleman's organization, temple. Why wouldn't you build a temple in a small city in Indiana? And we get to some of the normal schools. As I mentioned, the rewriting of the narrative. The normal schools were intended, we are told, were built to teach the teachers what to teach in the New World narrative. This is the Gertmeyer Technical School, they're saying. This is what it looked like. And it looks like they've done some de-techifying, if you will. And there it is. Not a great photograph, but it does show a bit more of the topography surrounding it. The streetcar. Another normal school. It's fantastic. Again, these are the types of buildings. How did they have the resources and the people and the money to build all of these structures? And yet another normal school. Not the same as this one. See, they're not the same structure. This is one of my favorites. It makes its way into one of my demolished old world buildings of North America books. Spectacular looking structure, making no sense. And yet another normal school. I think used as it becomes a teacher's college. So the name changing, but essentially the same purpose being handed down through time. And then we have the Women's Hall. Again, you can see the purpose continuing normal school. So quite an institution in Terre Haute to teach the teachers what to teach. The old city hall. I love this. The horses with the big wagon full of hay and brick arches, looking like maybe it's a couple hundred years old, multi-storied. Long gone. And we have an early opera house, and this one took me a while to find, but not a great photograph. You could see the dome here, mansard style dome with the circular windows, just faint, but the level of decoration on here not making sense. That one I think was supposed to be buried, but I have brought it to you in this presentation. And I'm happy I found this one at the very last second in my search. The old opera house in Terre Haute. Now you have to wonder how this narrative came to be. How would they be able to change the history of a location? This is the Rose Orphans Home. And I suggest that a large part of the changing of the historical narrative has to do with the relocation of children. And there were orphan homes riddled all over the continent, and I believe for the purpose of re-educating, taking children away from their parents and re-educating them to the new narrative. And these are also part of the same orphan homes complex. And this also is a bit of a depiction of an orphan homes complex, orphan's home. So no shortage of that narrative here in Terre Haute. We get a little bit more of the Catholic influence as well. We saw this church earlier. This is the Immaculate Conception at the St. Mary of the Woods. Another postcard of this oh no, this is the waterworks. My apologies. You can see the old vines, looking very old. They love to put the arch brick cornices on, because why not? I found the stadium there as well. You couldn't find a lot on this one. I don't know what they've done to it, or if they've modified it, or what. But looking very Roman Colosseum-esque. I'm not sure what this was. If anyone knows any more about the location, please put that in the comment section. But definitely looking Roman Colosseum-like. Not making any sense why you would build such a structure in Terre Haute, Indiana. And there's that, they're calling it the Teachers College now, like I showed earlier, this one in black and white. I'm going to continue to move fairly quickly, just to provide all the visuals for you. What do you think? What are we looking at here? Does it make sense that such a small city would have all of this architecture? Are you still trying to fit it into the small box of your historical narrative, the historical narrative that we've been taught? Or are you allowing some wiggle room? I know many of you are right there with me on this this journey of uncovering our past, but there are a lot of people just coming into the fold, just beginning to question the historical narrative. So this channel attempts to keep those arms open and welcome new people to this research into the fold, because we need as many eyes on it as possible. This is the theater there. It still stands, it looks like. Very ornate looking. One of my favorites too of these small town Midwestern cities are the theaters that they had. A lot of them not making sense as movie theaters, although we are told they were built as movie theaters. I think they were. I think the performing arts was alive and well in the old world, and they were repurposed as movie theaters with the moving pictures, and the moving pictures, of course, capturing our imagination, and painting a new picture of the past. And we're coming to the end of the file now, and we have the old Union Station, this one making, again, very little sense. Oh, why on earth would you put this tower there? I really, really like the arch here as well, and that looks like it's quite large. Very old stone looking, of course no longer stands. This looking like, what, the 50s, maybe? Of course the peak of that has been removed, and it looks like it's on its way out at this point. And we are told it opened in 1893, that same year. That comes up over and over again, and demolished in 1960. So nothing but the same old story. So let me know what you think. If you know any more about these locations, if you want to defend the historical narrative, go right ahead. But I think it's all up in the air at this point. There's much more to the story. Thanks for watching. This has been an old world exploration. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, hit the thumbs up button, and comment. I believe we are in the process of remembering who we really are and casting off the shackles of illusion. Until next time.